Macy's, I'm so grateful you're here today. Can you tell us just a little about yourself so that we can get to know you on a professional level, but also just a fun question? What makes your job fun and really excites you about your new role?
Well, thank you, Stacy, for the opportunity. First of all, welcome everyone. Bienvenidos a los que hablan español. It's a delight, it's an honor to be here with you. I feel very honored that you would ask me to be here. A little bit about myself. Okay, here goes. I've been living in Washington for many, many years, even while I did my career in Oregon most of the time. I've been in Washington about 30 years, going on 30 years. And although I did my career in Oregon, in the last 5 years, I was in San Francisco. I have two beautiful daughters in their 20s and a very supportive husband, spouse who is, I call him my right hand sometimes. But like I said, I did my majority of my career in Oregon. I was at TriMet, at Oregon Health and Science University, at Concordia University, at Portland State University. And then in the last 5 years, I was in San Francisco at Catholic Charities of San Francisco, Marin, San Mateo, where, by the way, I had the opportunity to work with the ARC down there. So that was a real splendid opportunity. And a little bit about the work that I've done, particularly around issues dealing with our DD community throughout my career, in almost every assignment, actually. Not just one or the other, just every single one. I've always been part of addressing issues of equity for all people, including people with disabilities, either whether it could have been a compliance program that I was building around ADA and reasonable accommodation, or access to healthcare, access to transportation when we were at TriMet, access to education as students at the university, of course, clients requesting services such as housing, food security, among others. So I've been involved with the communities, and particularly folks who are disabled throughout my entire career. So this is another opportunity to continue doing that in this role. So that makes me, again, even more privileged and honored. In a sense, we get to do it here at a much larger scale than at any one facility or any one entity that I worked at previously. So it's even a greater honor that I get to partner with you, Stacy, and all of our colleagues who are hopefully on this webinar, partner with you, and that's to do exactly what we all want, to advocate for our communities. So thank you for having me.
Oh yeah, thank you. We're so lucky to have you, I know. And I'm glad you got to work with ARCs before and that you know a little bit about our community. Just right out of the gate. I'm sure we'll be educating you a lot more as we go along about our state, and we're excited for that opportunity. So Assistant Secretary Debbie Roberts, you're so good about your visibility and connecting often with our community. You've been in your new position now for about a year, and I bet you've just learned so much. Do you want to start off with any thoughts or observations about this last legislative session, or things that you've just learned about in the past year that you might share with us?
Sure. It has been, gosh, it is a year. It is a year as of yesterday. So thank you, Stacy, for reminding me of that anniversary. It's been a very busy year. Let's start off talking about the legislature, and I won't try to take up too much time because I know that you're all interested in hearing from our secretary today, but this session was really, truly remarkable. It was remarkable for me because it was my first year doing this, and I was really moved and also energized by the work of all of the stakeholders in the legislature this session. And we're really, we're not alone. DDA isn't alone in this work. This is a work of partnerships across the whole community in trying to come up with the best solutions for some of the issues that we experience. So I really am excited about the opportunity that we will get to work together over the next few years as we try to reinvent our service delivery system in several ways. It all begins with a conversation that we had a lot of over legislative session, which is around eligibility. And we have definitely heard the issues. We understand that our front door should be a welcoming environment to all. And that is my goal and intention. And the legislative emphasis is also part of how we will reinvent what we do in order to make it more accessible for people. During this legislative session, I'm sure many of you have heard on other calls, we analyzed over 150 bills, and that includes every iteration of the bill. So each time that a bill comes forward, we look at it to determine how that might work within the Developmental Disabilities Administration, how it will work around the community, and what those potential budget impacts or savings might be. And so all of our headquarters staff are busy looking at each of those bills and trying to determine what we need to tell the legislature about it from our perspective. You all go to the legislature and talk about what your perspective is and what you would like to see. And we look at it from the administration and how in the executive branch we need to be doing some of the reviewing of those bills. So we want to make sure that it has things that come across, have good outcomes for all. And during the rest of the year, our staff are busily doing their regular book of business and implementing all the new things that are coming down the pike. So there is a lot of amazing things. And so I'm going to go through really quickly some of the highlights that came out of the legislation, if you don't mind.
I think
So
that's great.
The first bill that we have is House Bill 1980, and that was related to employment and day services, ensuring that you can receive both services instead of being having only to receive employment or only to receive community inclusion. That the legislature really put some resource behind that, and it is going to allow us, starting in January of 2023, to be able to offer both of the services to individuals that are interested in that. So I know January 2023 seems pretty far off, but what ends up happening is July 1st, we are authorized to go forward and do these wonderful changes. And then we try to build up our provider groups and do all of that work. If we have to change law, if we have to change rules, if we have to develop policies, if we have to work with the community, we have about 6 months to do that. And then it will be implemented across the state. Another bill that also is related to employment and day that you may have heard about is the School to Work. And that actually ended up in DVR's budget, and they're required to bring that to fruition. But we are planning, and we have already been partnering with DVR to ensure that the relationships that we have with the counties are that we can help build relationships between the counties and DVR. DVR typically doesn't work with the counties the same way that DDA does. So we're going to make sure that we are collaborating and helping move this forward as this really good, amazing opportunity, bring this School to Work across the state to all the other different all the other counties that don't currently have it. Senate Bill 5268. That is a very interesting bill, and this was the second year that it was brought forward. And this is continuation of the work that the Ruckelshaus Work Group started many years ago. Many of you may have heard about that. It's looking at our institutions or our facilities to see what does the future of the facilities look like in Washington State. So one of the outcomes of that particular report was really about ensuring that our communities are bolstered up so that people have the services that they want and need in the community. So what came out of this year of the Senate Bill 5268 is the legislature provided some courtesy forecasting for our waiver services. So that's very exciting. Up until now, we've only had forecasting related to our state plan services. And what state plan services means, that's our community first choice. That's nursing facilities. Those are the things that any entitlement that is available to DDA clients is typically called a state plan service. And then waiver service are in addition to our state plan services. So now they're going to be looking at those and seeing what is the true need? What is the need that's being expressed? So that they can make a determination whether they're going to fund those community services that people are asking for. It's a very important change in the law, and it's very important that people are now focusing on ensuring that our community has the services that are needed for the individuals that we serve. And something really important about this is that the forecasting is going to be fact and data driven, right? So if we can show the legislature the data that says this is needed, that to them is what drives the system versus us coming with an anecdote about how, oh, we, a bunch of people have asked for this thing, or we think this is what people want. We're going to go with real facts and data, and that will help them determine what they want to fund in the future. So pretty exciting times for us. Senate Bill 5819, we actually got the case managers that we've all been asking for a long time to serve the 12,000 clients that are on the no paid services caseload. So thank you for all your great work on this. We submitted a report this year that was very persuasive and helped folks to make, the legislature to come to the decision that this was valuable and it was worth funding. And so they did. So it's been about 10 years since those case managers were removed from those caseloads back in the Great Recession. So we are so excited to be able to bring this back into play. House Bill 2008, many of you have probably heard about that one. That one is removing IQ from our eligibility requirements. And so that one requires that by 2025, we make changes in our eligibility system with removing IQ as a determining factor. So there's a lot of work in the hopper on this to ensure that our systems are adequately and accurately able to determine eligibility. The legislature provided a lot of resource to us on this. So psychologists, all kinds of different staff to be able to make this change come to fruition. They realized what a significant change and lift it was going to be for DDA, but they came right behind it and gave us the resources that we needed to bring this to fruition. So, and as I mentioned before, we really want to ensure that the front door is a welcoming place for people, and people feel that that they know what they need to do to get into DDA. So let's see, the operating budget gave us an opportunity to provide a report about reducing the footprint of Rainier School. And we are hiring a project manager to help bring that report and all the stakeholdering that needs to happen to fruition. We're going to keep working with the Healthcare Authority and DCYF and some other partners to help ensure there are better transitions for youth that are hospitalized when they're ready to, when they continue to be hospitalized, when they may be ready to discharge. This is a good thing. The first time in many, many years that the legislature has given us resource to get some more financial workers to help speed up the DDE eligibility process. They did, however, only put that into effect for 1 year. So we will be advocating for those to actually be permanent positions. Financial work, as many of you, if you've filled out the paperwork to become Medicaid eligible, is quite complex. And so as it is with a lot of the jobs in our administration, that complexity takes at least a year to get where you're feeling confident in your abilities and actually bringing a lot of value to the work. So we are super excited and hoping that we can continue that on in future years. And our community residential providers were given a 23% rate increase. And we have heard some inklings that may be making a difference in some areas right now, even though the money doesn't come to fruition until July 1st, it still is just really an investment in supported living across the state. And so we're really so pleased about that. This was just a few of the bills that we had, and there's some major system change in there. We also have 19 legislative reports where we usually, I don't know, have a couple. We have 19 legislative reports that are due out of this session, out of this session and the previous session. So those reports, though, are really our opportunity to educate the legislature on, what is actually happening at the ground level and give them some recommendations for how to make some more change that will be a benefit to the individuals that we're served. So we are very excited about the future and the opportunities that we received out of the legislative session. And I think I'll just keep it there, Stacy. I think that was a lot. So thank you very much.
Now, thank you, Debbie. It was quite a notable legislative session, and the caseload forecasting is certainly one of the things we're most excited about. So we can plan with the legislature where we go from here. So that's great. So Secretary Meneses, back to you. And as we've noted, this has been quite a time in our history. We're still living with a pandemic. We're engaged in a powerful racial justice movement and facing a future that calls for really re-examining how we care for and support people. What in your background helps you approach social justice issues? And how do you think disability and racial equity might intersect? Do you see disability fitting into equity discussions in our state in particular? Tell us more about your thoughts on that.
That's a very important question. In fact, critical to this discussion and to the partnerships that I need to have with folks on this webinar. As we all know, there has been a tremendous amount of racism in this country, going back to slavery and going back to our indigenous communities and sovereign nations. Similarly, there has been a tremendous injustice and discrimination against people with disabilities. Historically, unfortunately, people with disabilities have not been given similar opportunities. They've been treated as less than and have been shunned from society. It's been a tremendous, tragic history for many, many people with disabilities. And eventually, we saw the Americans with Disabilities Act and so forth, but that has not cured the problems completely. Fast forward to 2022. We are still seeing issues around discrimination or issues of discrimination with our brothers and sisters in our community who are disabled. Sometimes they don't have equal access to services or to healthcare or to education for a variety of reasons, despite the very, very good efforts of many people here, including folks like you, Stacy, and myself and others. So the intersection is quite clear. Discrimination is not exclusive to race. Discrimination includes people with disabilities. And together, that's something that we have to address and continue to addressing. So as advocates, all of us, it is responsibility of all of us to work together to address those, particularly when we see a pattern, again, of lack of access or equity or treating people with less than respect, right, or dignity because we are different, whether it's because of race or whether it's because of our disability. So they very much intersect. And throughout my entire career, as I mentioned, to the various entities that I've worked at, my primary focus in every career move that I've made has been social justice and civil rights, and not just within the organizations that I've worked at, but throughout the community. In Oregon, one of the organizations that I worked with as a chair of a board was a disability rights group called Oregon Disabilities Network. It was very long ago, but there were other groups that we worked with promoting rights for and civil rights for people with disabilities. And of course, again, in all the respective positions that I've held as well, including this one. And this is why I was so excited when you asked me to join you today, is because I want to make it clear that civil rights and social justice are critical to my existence. And for obvious reasons, I'm a Latina, okay, I'm a woman. I've had my share of experiences in this world, not necessarily being treated fairly and so forth. And so I know how it feels. I know the effects or the impact discrimination can have on a human being. And therefore, I oppose injustice when it comes to discrimination against people with disabilities, just as I oppose injustice with people when people with disabilities are part of that. Hopefully that answers your question. So the bottom line is I'm here to work with all of you as partners to promote fairness and dignity and respect for our brothers and sisters, regardless of whether they're able-bodied or have a disability or what color they are.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. Your perspective is so valuable there. And this is such a critical conversation, as you said. So we look forward to seeing more of your efforts within DSHS around that. A lot of people don't know this, but you were a member of the governor's cabinet. You have a very large department, $17 billion budget, 16,000 employees. I think the website said you have 23,000 contracted providers. At any given point, nearly 1 in 4 Washingtonians intersect with DSHS and will turn to DSHS for assistance at some point in time in their lives. Whether it's for food assistance or temporary assistance for needy families, refugee support, cash assistance, medical assistance, you got a huge job. Mm-hmm. And as you come into this new position and work with Governor Inslee on critical services in our state, we're always just wondering, how will we make sure that people with IDD don't get lost? We want to make sure that you really see us. And to that end, it might help if we know maybe a little more about your experience with people with developmental disabilities and how your role will different from Debbie's, how it will be different from Debbie's, and how you might make sure that we keep developmental disabilities as one of those important parts on your dashboard.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you for that. And so you're correct. DSHS is a large entity. It's like a corporation, right? We have several administrations: behavioral health, ESA, the Economic Services Administration, Debbie's, the DDA administration that's run by Debbie, and ALTA, long-term care, that is, right? So it's very, very large. And as a result, we have administrators for each of those administrations, such as Debbie. It's like a corporation with various divisions. I will rely on Debbie to manage the Disabilities Administration, Developmental Disabilities Administration, just like I will rely on now Tony Bowie to manage, call it the division of ESA, et cetera. Debbie alone has, I believe, 4,500 employees or so, right? Give or take a little bit, more probably take, and a very large budget and so forth. So I would not be able to manage every single administration by myself. I need experts like Debbie, who are well seasoned in this area to do that. So she definitely is, call it the CEO of the disabilities, the Developmental Disabilities Administration. And yes, she reports to me, and we partner together on strategy and how to improve the services of our community together. She wouldn't be doing her job if she let me forget, or she did not put it on the top of my priority list to also address issues in her administration for the people we serve there. She wouldn't be. So I'm looking at you, Debbie. You're gonna do your job. You're gonna make sure I don't forget. It will continue being a priority for me, just like it is a priority to address other clients, right? And at Catholic Charities, it was very similar. I had several administrations, obviously at a much smaller scale, but one of them was the program called the Aging and People with Disabilities program. Okay, again, it was like a division, and there we had a person who was in charge of just that division, and that one in particular was very special to me. We had several programs, including providing affordable housing for people with disabilities, but also providing what we called adult daycare. So we appreciated when people who with disabilities wanted to stay in their home. And for a variety of reasons, some of these clients, that's what they wanted. However, maybe with family or relatives and so forth. However, they needed a separate place to go to during the day. And that's when they came to us. And there they not only receive socialization, but sometimes education, sometimes medication monitoring and other services. There was one, I used to tell people at Catholic Charities that we serve people from 0 to 107 years old. The 0 came from the fact that many of the women that lived with us in our various shelters gave birth during the pandemic, by the way. But the 107 years old came from the fact that we had a disabled person who was 107 years old who was continuing to come to our programs and had been doing so for the last 25 years. Right? And so again, we provided them with love and dignity and care, nurturing care with respect and dignity at our programs. Anyway, that's the translation that I want to give here. That's what we have to do here, whether regardless of which facility or program a person is involved in, that's the kind of assistance or care that we need to provide here. And again, we will continue doing it with partnerships with all of you and with Debbie's leadership.
And can I just say a little something here? Jilma has spent countless hours with me in these last 4 months. We meet formally on, at least every 2 weeks, and then as a larger group at our cabinet weekly. So there's a lot of interaction. There's a lot of opportunities for me to be able to present Jilma with some of the issues that we are trying to address, the good things, the accomplishments, the things that we're looking at down the road for future improvements, and the crisis situations that she's very aware of. That we have all kinds of reporting requirements that bring up those crisis situations to Jilma at all the time. So over time, I'm sure each topic will come I will have the opportunity to broach those with Jilma, but I think she has an amazing ability from her previous experience, and then just how quickly she has come on board and seen what we are doing in here. So depend upon me to bring things forward to her, and we as a team will figure out what our next steps are.
Thank you, Debbie.
Yeah, thank you, Debbie. Yeah, we really appreciate hearing that, because again, I don't think people often have that perspective. And I know that you all are meeting regularly, and I know you're going out to start to see programs, and that's very exciting. Well, you did, interestingly, you inherited a Developmental Disabilities Administration that has struggled a little bit to get some commitment for funding of our programs. And you probably know that our state is kind of hovers around the bottom 10 for spending if you compare us to other states in the nation. We have a very long list of people waiting for services, on nearly 14,000 people, various points in time on the no paid services caseload. And I was curious if you could tell us a little more about your priorities as secretary, generally, what your priorities might be for DDA in particular, maybe, some of your immediate or short-term goals for developmental disabilities.
Certainly. So one of my key priorities follows on what Debbie just said. I want to get out and see the programs, but also and learn about our clients who are these respective programs. But also I want to get out to meet some of the people in this call, whether it's at a nonprofit organization that they might work at serving people with disabilities, or whether it's a parent of a person with a disabilities who wishes to spend time with me and share a little bit about their son or daughter or loved one. I want to know what the needs are out there. And it's not because I'm going to be able to fix everything. I promise you, that's no matter how much I try, it's not humanly possible. But I do want to learn the perspectives and want to learn the different experiences that people have so that I can be a voice to the legislature and others about making DD a priority. When we started this conversation, I said there's been historical discrimination against people with disabilities, right? Just like there has been historical discrimination for people of color, okay? And so you just said, and up until recently, the DD community has not been well funded. Why is that? Why is that? And you don't have to answer that, Stacey, but that's the question, right? Why is it? And we have to continue changing that. We have to make it a priority, not just for Debbie and myself and for those who are in this group, but to our legislature and others who have the authority to change that. Right? We have to explain to them why it should be a priority for them. And that's what one of the things that I can help do with alongside many of you is to explain why our brothers and sisters need access to the various services and whatever more. So that is a very big, important priority going forward for me. The other very important priority is figuring out how to continue providing the services that the community requires under such difficult times of labor shortage. We have a national labor shortage, Every single employer in the United States and certainly Washington and certainly DSHS has a labor shortage. We are itching to find people to work with us, and there just aren't enough people to go around. Not at the labor shortages, I don't think has been this bad ever since I don't remember when it's ever been this bad. And so how can we continue doing the work that we do with less people? That's a big deal. And I welcome, by the way, folks on this call and beyond to send people our way to help us, because we need labor. And then the use of technology, for a variety of reasons, funding being among many other reasons probably. I think that there is so much opportunity to modernize our technology in the state of Washington and certainly at DSHS, so that again, our clients receive timely and effective, efficient services. Right, and not just waiting around for hours and hours on a phone call when they're needing to apply for certain benefits and so forth. So we need the right platforms, IT platforms, and modernization of all our monitoring of everything that we do through technology, so that we can better serve the clients. Those are big ones, and of course there are others, but those are the big ones.
Thank you so much. That's a lot on your plate. And we appreciate that you're paying attention, such close attention to us already. Our community is so diverse, and historically we've not done a good job ensuring that all voices are heard, all the diverse voices in our community in particular, or even centering the voices of people with intellectual and developmental disabilities when we shape the systems that serve them. In addition, we know that nearly 80% of people with IDD live with their families the majority of their lives. We need to make sure that communities of color are heard, that aging families are prioritized, that the system we have doesn't just respond to people in crisis, but allows people an opportunity to really thrive during their lifetime. So we're curious, how will you get to know people with developmental disabilities and their families, and how can they help inform you about their needs? We want to make sure that our system is providing for the needs of this community. We want to work together with you, and we just would love to hear more about how we make sure we're getting those messages across.
Well, it's all real-time experience, I call it. So I had the pleasure with Debbie just last Thursday to visit one of our providers, and maybe they're on this call, I don't know. And they, not only did I get to meet their staff, and they shared with me how they prepare our clients for the workforce, and they shadow them, and they provide them with tools to be successful and so forth. And we had a great time listening to that and hearing those experiences. But we also went and visited one of the clients at the workplace. And not only did we do that, and we had an opportunity to talk to her with the support from her employer, of course, but also we got to meet her mother, who met with us on site. And again, with permission from everyone involved, the employer and even the client. Okay. And at first, actually, the client wasn't too thrilled that mom was there, but then she agreed that mom should be there. And so I had the pleasure and wonderful pleasure of hearing and talking with mom and with client. And wow, and how that was the highlight of my entire day. And I loved meeting with the providers, of course, but I loved meeting with the client and with mom even more, because I got, again, firsthand knowledge of how they were feeling, what they were experiencing, what kinds of opportunities were before them and or challenges. And so that to me, if I could do more of that, and I would be very, very pleased, and obviously my cup would be much fuller, I would say. And I want to do more of that. Please, feel free to invite me to your respective programs and or entities, and feel free to present me to some of the clients and their families. I mean, that's the very best way to get to know the people. I'm in this role because I want to serve people. I'm not in this role because I want to manage a large budget or oversee 17,000 people. I'm in this role to serve our community. So I want to get to know them.
And I just want to kick in that we're trying to get a supported living visit scheduled. And Darla Health is hosting a visit in the Vancouver area, and I think of companion homes and assorted other settings. So feel free to connect with me and I can get that scheduling done, because I too want to be out and seeing. I agree with Jilma. That was probably one of the best days that I've had in my entire year in this position. With everything that's going on, it's been really busy, and we've been behind our desks or at our home, working on the computers. And so now it's time to get out, meet people in person, and see the incredible work that is going on. I want to just give a shout out. It was Trillium that we were working with, and Pierce County last week, and they did a magnificent job. And really, these are the hard things that keep us doing the hard work every day. So please feel free to reach out, and we'll see what we can get scheduled.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Thanks for those shout outs, Debbie. I know it can be the most moving, really, to just be out and meet people. And we all get insulated from that sometimes in our jobs. So thank you for making that great effort. Another question that we have is, Washington is it's a wealthy, progressive state that needs to tackle a lot of misperceptions about people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. Ideas that underpin this notion of basic human value. We have to end the idea that people with IDD are a burden to society, that rights can depend on your abilities, and that state-run institutions or nursing homes can be a good option for people with IDD to live. Those are just old notions about what people with IDD can achieve in their lifetimes. Too many people still believe that the rights of someone with IDD are conditional on their abilities, and that expectations and ideas we know change when people have just one relationship with someone with IDD, which means they have to have contact with them and be in the community. expectations about social life and falling in love and deciding how to spend their time, living on their own or outside their families, deciding whether they want to live with someone else or not, whether they get married, can they manage their own finances and make decisions about their medical care. I mean, these are all just basic things that you and I might take for granted that someone with IDD often doesn't have the opportunity to engage in. And people really, in many ways, vastly underestimate the lack of supports for people with developmental disabilities in the community, including for their families, which is important since, again, 80% of people with IDD end up living with their families throughout their lifetimes. So we're curious, what do you see as the future for people with IDD, and how do we move into a better vision for how the state supports families and people with IDD so they can live their best lives?
Mhm. I think one thing that we have to do so that people with developmental disabilities feel more supported and can live healthy lives or healthier lives, maybe even more independent, healthy living, if that's what they can't, they thrive to do. One thing that is very critical is that we need to teach those around us. A lot of times people think negatively of others, or again, discriminate against certain groups because of fear or ignorance. Sometimes it's not even ill intent, it's just fear or ignorance, or and all of the above, right? And so we have to continue sharing the knowledge and the compassion, okay, with others. It wasn't too long ago, and most of you will remember, that we had a very important politician in this country who was making fun of people with disabilities, right? We have to be an interrupter and a disruptor when that happens. And sometimes we have to do it politely and sometimes less politely. But we all have to speak up when those things happen in order to educate not only that particular individual who's doing the wrong, but also the rest of society, particularly if the rest of society is listening to those individuals doing the harm, okay? We need to be educators to the larger community about who people with disabilities are, what they offer community, what they offer society, and how it's the responsibility of every single human being to treat others with dignity and respect, regardless of their differences or their intellectual or their disabilities. So hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, and Debbie, I don't know if you wanted to add a little bit more.
Yeah, I really loved what Helma said. It's really a big question. We all have to partner together. This isn't something that DDA is going to be the one-stop shop for, right? So this is something that we teach others, we work together with you, we come up with ideas that would work, collaboration, we work with the legislature, Helma works with the governor's office, counties, state, all kinds of people and entities in order to bring good things to fruition. We really have seen a lot come, like I mentioned earlier, a lot come out of the legislature. We're making change. There's change coming. Change is coming. The legislature is investing in our community services, which is a very big deal. They see us, they see you, they see what you want the future to be. What is it that you all want for the future? That's the kind of thing that we need to be asking and finding out and seeing what part we fit into that design for the future. So.
Yeah, I think that's great. And, we all believe, even though this is a kind of an archaic budgeting tool, that caseload forecasting is so much the key to getting us at the front of the budget, and that the legislature will have these real numbers of what it is we need. We've heard the legislature say, and we can't just write you a blank check. We need to know how many people we can serve, providing what sorts of services, and making sure that we are making an investment that we're knowledgeable about. So we're really hopeful about that change. Of course, the more we expand community, the more opportunities people have to live the life that they choose, as opposed to, whatever the system has to offer them in the moment that they may need something outside of their families. So we're really grateful for that. And as you said, Debbie, there's so many exciting things happening right now. I've been an advocate for many years now, and I haven't seen this much momentum in a long time. So it's really just very exciting. This has been such a great discussion. I know we can't cover everything in this short time, and I hope it won't be the last time that we see each other. But I'm curious if you think there's anything that we might have missed, or that you want to make sure and share with us, just so that the community has a good sense of, where we go from here.
Well, I definitely think we need to partner on solutions going forward, on the opportunities, and we need to partner on the challenges I've said previously. And we need to think of our brothers and sisters who have disabilities, that think about the fact that as humans, we all have our differences, we all have our different needs, right? And there's not one uniform solution for the entire population when there's a problem. Similarly, there's not one solution for the entire DD community. It just depends on the individual, what their needs are, what they're facing, what the challenges are, what their health situation and so forth. We have to be able to address the different individuals where they are. Some people require certain things, some people require other things. So as a community, we need to be able to address each individual where they are, okay? And be open to pivoting, to doing it a little bit differently depending on that person's needs. We cannot be uniform in delivery of services, because every single human is going to have unique identifiers and unique needs. So that's, I think, pretty important. Debbie, did you have something to add to that?
I wanted to be really brass tacks. I wanted to bring some real things that we are doing as well that are new. So we put together a triad of individuals in headquarters with all these new resources that are coming in. There's a little bit of infrastructure that's built into that, right? So that's what we're trying to utilize to really create a future that people, that we can all be proud of and meets the needs of people. So we've been able to put together, getting somebody in there to deal with language access, getting somebody in there to deal with, be able to address tribal issues, getting somebody in there that equity, diversity, access, and inclusion are their main focus. I've hired somebody to work on workforce development. I've hired somebody to work on housing issues, which we know is a huge issue in the community, right? Like we can't, supported living vendors are doing everything that they can to try to find homes so that they can serve people that may be in hospital or in an institution or in a state hospital. Housing is a serious issue. But there are a lot of issues that we're trying to address. Again, we all need the partnership that you all provide to help us get better. But there are some resources that we are putting towards a lot of the issues that come to us on a frequent basis. So I think that's a change for, where we have been and what some of that work that you all have done at the legislature, that we've done at the legislature, that brought some resources to DDA. And we're hoping that we can bring value with each of those positions for individuals that we serve.
Thank you. Yeah, we've gotten some great responses here in the backside, and I just wanted you to know, everybody agrees there is no one size fits all. There's no way that we can pack services at DDA to address all the needs in each person's area of their life. And we want government supports and state supports to be responsive across agencies and departments. And so we're grateful for you acknowledging that, and that DDA is becoming more nimble, right, in its responses and being able to look carefully at what people are saying they really need. So I'm I'm so grateful for your time. You've both been so gracious about letting us hear more about your vision and your thinking for Washingtonians with developmental disabilities and their families. I know people may have more questions as we follow up, and I just wanted to let you know that for those of you that have, some real pressing um, individual issues, and that always comes up, and I see some in the chat. I'm happy to start with you as the ARC to help you try to problem solve. So you can email me at stacy@arcwa.org. So I'll put that in the chat, stacy@arcwa.org. And for DSHS, they have a gal who's very adept at being able to answer questions, and she's very willing to take your questions. That's Lisa Pemberton. She's waving at you now, and her name is spelled out. So it's lisa.pemberton@dshs.wa.gov. And we can answer individual questions for sure. We did not expect that we could get to everything here today. This was really, as it says, a meet and greet and a get to know your face and your thinking. And Hilma, it's just been so wonderful to talk with you, and Debbie, for you to be here to share with us what's going on, because it is hard for busy families and people with developmental disabilities to always kind of catch up on these things. So thank you again. This presentation will be on our websites in just a couple of days, and we hope everybody has a great day. Thank you again.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having us. Thank you.
Thank
And
you.
thank you for everybody on the chat. And I'd love to visit Southwest Washington. It's where my primary home is, as well as the Tri-Cities. So reach out to us. Thank you.
All right. We'll look forward to hearing from everybody. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.